For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to the Gist on StratNewsGlobal. Good evening, I'm Surya Gangadharan. Welcome to another edition of the Gist. Our focus is on one of your favorite topics, China, and it's about understanding China. And the reason for this title and this show is an article written by a professor in Jawaharlal Nehru University, Professor Hemant Adlakha. He's my guest this evening. He teaches Chinese languages at JNU. And Professor Adlakha, glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Surya. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
I'd like to look at the trigger for this conversation. Basically, an article written by you in one of the online magazines. And I was intrigued by the title you had, the Tawang clash, Chinese media and scholars say, is an advantage to Beijing. So I was just wondering, how do you, since the Tawang clash is so recent, I just thought I'd kick off with that as a news peg. And if you could explain to us, I mean, I know you didn't give this headline. Nevertheless, why is it an advantage to Beijing?
Thank you. In fact, to tell you frankly, the headline was given by me and they carried it unchanged.
I see.
And I had given it because what I understood on the basis of the commentaries I read in the Chinese media. And in fact, before this article, a week before this article, I had written another article which on the same topic, which was carried by the diplomat. And this is more a elaborate version of the earlier article. And that, I mean, it's very difficult for us to ascertain, both sides are claiming victory, both sides are saying that we've defeated the other side. In that kind of a situation, well, I went by what the Chinese media is saying and how they are reacting to this particular clashes. And three things are very striking in the way the Chinese have been discussing this thing. One, they are referring to the official statement by the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, who said in reply to a question on Tawang clash, who did not mention Tawang at all in his reply and just gave a one-liner saying that situation at the border is stable. Mm-hmm. That was the spokesperson Wang Wenpin, which was widely reported here also. And the second is the Western Theatre Command spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Lung Shaohua, who gave a one-paragraph statement, which was again reported here by a section of the media. And if I paraphrase what Lieutenant Colonel Lung Shaohua said, especially the line which was discussed and interpreted by the Chinese commentators, indicating that this is a victory for them, Colonel Lung Shaohua had said that Chinese border guards, when they were patrolling in that area, they were intercepted and blocked by an Indian army, a team of Indian army, which was dealt with professionally and in a standard manner and forcefully. I mean, this was the statement given by Lieutenant Colonel Lung Shaohua. So both these statements have been interpreted widely in the Chinese commentaries as that this indicates that China has been victorious in this round of scuffle. Otherwise, the foreign ministry spokesperson would not have said that the border situation is stable. And the way they interpreted Colonel Lung Shaohua, that also, because I thought that was interesting because in our commentaries and debates and media reports here, these were, I mean, what Chinese official spokesperson said was merely reported, not interpreted or analyzed. Mm-hmm. So I thought that this is an interesting reading. So these are the reasons on the basis of what I read. I thought I should be sharing this thing with my readers as well.
So I stand corrected. The headline was yours. But tell me, this colonel whom you quote, he wasn't being entirely accurate, was he?
Now, I mean, I don't know. I have no means to either question such a claim or do not, I mean, believe such a claim, because I've read lots of claims reported and interpreted in the Indian media also, both by the official spokesperson as well as the various other interlocutors.
Yes.
So, one thing was again striking, that throughout, I have not, even till date, I have not come across a single report in the Indian media where the number of Indian army which was involved in this scuffle in Tawang on December 9, that number has not been mentioned or specified or even clarified. Whereas every report has told us how many Chinese were there, 250 or 300 or something. So that I found very intriguing. And the third thing which I wanted to say about what led me to believe that why Chinese are saying what they're saying and I should report it here is that they're saying that the December 9 clash was actually, Chinese noticed it. It was kept as a very low profile in the Indian media at the beginning. And they said that even the first to break this news was not even the Indian media, it was Russian media. And then it was
Mhm.
picked up by Reuters and others. And then Indian media was forced to actually report about it. That's what the Chinese are saying.
Mhm. So, what you're, I mean, I'm trying to understand, you're telling us that perhaps the Indian side has not been quite transparent about this clash, or they're not revealing the full details of what happened?
I mean, I would not say whether they are transparent or not, but definitely when I look at the way, especially this is very striking compared to Doklam and Galwan, the way the Chinese media has been very aggressive in reporting about this particular incident, and also the numbers. And another thing which I don't know, nobody noticed here, and the
Mhm.
Chinese commentators pointed out that this is the first time in such a border scuffle or skirmishes between India and China. This is the first time that the Chinese have officially mentioned Indian troops. Normally, they don't mention country's name, they say foreign troops. For the first time, they mentioned Indian troops intercepted and blocked us.
Mhm. So, during, you're saying that during the Galwan period of hostilities, they specifically mentioned Indian troops, or they were saying
No,
foreign troops?
no, they did not specifically mention initially. They said foreign troops, and it was in December 9. On December 9, Tawang clash for the first time, according to them, they've from the day one they have started using Indian troops rather than saying foreign
Mhm.
troops.
So you think the Chinese are being more truthful, is it?
Truthful, I don't know, but definitely, I mean, they are more. I mean, they're not being conspicuous or they're not hiding anything about it. I mean, that's very clear. They want to be open and they want to be seen as very frank and candid, at least in this episode.
But tell me, Hemant, you've been studying the Chinese for a long time. Is their system anywhere near transparent or open or anything of that kind?
Well, definitely. I mean, I don't agree, and I've been writing about it for some time. Whether it is about their political affairs or whether it is about economic affairs or even military-related issues. I mean, there is more. I mean, for example, would not agree if people still say that China is some kind of a opaque system or there is a opacity, there's non-transparency. I don't think so. I mean, this morning also I was glancing through various Chinese news portals, and I was surprised that a very long article in Chinese appeared this morning on one of the news portals, which actually gives more details, graphic details, and maps about that particular location of the scuffle on 9 December, which I had not seen in the previous commentaries so far. I mean, today's commentary was an eye opener. I mean, it's such a detailed report with pictures, with maps, with graphic details, etc., etc. So there is definitely something about it which we have to analyze properly. That why Chinese are being I mean, the media is filled with reporting and commentaries, unlike the previous skirmishes.
So the you mentioned the location of the clash.
Yeah,
They call it Dongzhang. They
yeah,
don't call it as
Tungchang,
Yangtse.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, is this a different place altogether from Yangtze? Or
No, what I make out from the way one, for example, whether it was Lung Shaohua, the Western Theatre Command spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Lung Shaohua, or other reports or commentaries, everywhere they have mentioned Tungchang. And at least one or two commentaries I saw where they have mentioned that the Indian media or the Indian side refers this to as Yangtze, but they call it
Mhm.
Tungchang, and it's a district, and it's not just a small place. I mean, if I wish I could show you the maps which I have in my laptop, but I'm not a very, technology savvy person, so I don't know how to show that to you right now. But later on,
Mhm.
maybe we can exchange notes. And Tungchang is the exact location. Actually, there is something called Tungchang waterfall,
Mhm.
which is very close to the access point to Tawang city. And in Chinese, they also say that this particular Tungchang waterfall is on the Tungchang. There are two rivers merging, and one of the rivers
Mhm.
is Tungchang River, which is the narrowest point at a given location is 2 meters or something, which can
Mhm.
one can cross during the dry season. And it's a very beautiful panoramic scenic place which they are trying to develop into a tourist place now, and they call it as the throat of Tawang. I mean, this is the
I
nearest
see.
and the access point to. And they also mention that Tungchang, I mean, this is spelled as Dongzhang, and it is also the point from where they had launched the attack on Tawang in 1962. So it's not something new place or something, according to them.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in fact, yesterday I saw an article in a publication written by an Indian scholar from Rajaratnam School, Singapore, and who has mentioned and perhaps I don't know, perhaps wrongly equated Tungchang with Tawang.
Mhm. I see. But the Chinese have been coming there for years. Even last year, they made an attempt to try and force Indian troops out of that position.
Yes, as I mentioned, I mean, the commentaries, they are giving you the full historical background of since when this problem in this area started. They've given various, I mean, the first time the biggest clash happened here, according to their reports, was in 1985-86. And
Hmm.
then
Sundaram
there was
too.
an, and then, yeah, just before that, that was 86-87. And then
Hmm.
there was this 1999, there was an 82 days standoff in this area itself. And then they
Hmm.
say that from 2001 in particular, this particular location where Tawang clash happened on December 9 fell into the hands of the Indian army, and they
Hmm.
built some outposts there. And since then, the Chinese have been trying to take back the control, and it has been going on. And the most recent one was in October last year in the same spot.
Hmm. Do you think usually the Chinese are very circumspect about reporting these kind of things? Why would you say they are now reporting? The Chinese media is reporting so much about it.
I think one definitely, given the pressure they find themselves under because of the worsening relationship with the US, And the way in their understanding, the US is actually organizing or creating problems for China on every front, including now the border with India. And they also link it with the Blinken's visit sometime soon now. And their argument is, as I mentioned in the article also, that this various front pressure on China is also being created by America to put the Chinese under pressure when they are talking to Blinken, when Blinken is in Beijing. I mean, this is one way of looking at it, according to them. On the other hand, I think this is also their pressure tactics to put India under pressure. And that is the reason why they are becoming more aggressive and more frequently such things are happening. And they're also now becoming less and less circumspect about it.
Do you see a connection between what the Chinese publicly proclaim, peaceful intentions, all that stuff, and what they do on the border? Do you think one balances the other?
Well, I mean, I really don't know who is to be. I mean, who is saying the truths or who is objective? Because I mean, I don't need to mention what is the mindset of public opinion in our country about these border clashes vis-a-vis China. Because, in fact, it is actually very surprising for researchers like us. Because if you remove the name of China and India from these kind of commentaries or discourse from both the countries, it will be very difficult to understand who is accusing whom. Because the language is same, the wording is same. Both are accusing each other of belligerence and occupying others' territory, etc., etc. So, I mean, this is very strange that the two sides involved are actually indulging in same kind of discourse on the one hand. On the other hand, the overall perception in China is that, like in 1962, I mean, they don't call it India-China border war like we say it. They always call it China's counter-defensive war against India. And the same discourse continues even for these standoffs or scuffles or skirmishes now, but with a difference. And the difference is, and that's very important for us to understand, that in 1962 they unilaterally went back. And in fact, in last 10 years or so, there has been more debate happening in China on scholars and bloggers on Weibo and other social media platforms have been asking these questions, that why did we unilaterally withdraw? That was a mistake of Mao. That debate is picking up now. So this time, what happened in Galwan in particular, I mean, the reasons they give is the same. Like earlier, India's forward policy and Chinese had no choice but to strike at India. And the same reason they are giving this time, but with a difference. And the difference is last time in 1962, they unilaterally went back. This time, they're not going to do that. They're going to stay. And they've made it very clear. Even in these commentaries after December 9 clash, they've said it openly. At least 3 commentators have openly said that the way India is building up and strengthening its infrastructure on the border, we are going to destroy it. And we are going to destroy it, including the latest, that Sela tunnel in Tawang, which was supposed to become operative this year, but I think last year, but now it is going to be operative this month or next month or something. Even some commentators have openly said that that's also a threat to us and we'll destroy that. I mean, this is something new as far as I understand.
So you read China's intentions as getting tougher on India on the ground and diplomatically.
Yes, and for reasons which are perhaps different from what generally we tend to understand, and that is where my difference is with much of the Indian interpretation of what is happening on border with China, which was one of your questions which you posed to me, that why I disagree with or why I actually challenge some of the diplomats what they're saying about China. And the reason being that it is not, for China, it is a local issue, it's a local dispute. It is not something zero sum game with India, or it is not something very strategic, kind of a larger strategy against India. In India, we tend to think like that, that it's a zero sum game, China is playing with us. It's not. So that is the difference. And basically, what they are trying to do is they're trying to, on the one hand, they're trying to avoid any Doklam kind of incident being repeated, because in Chinese perception, in Chinese discourse, the understanding is that the Doklam was India's doing and they could not do anything. So they don't want this thing to be repeated again. That is for one. And second, they think that, especially in the last few years, or let's say post 2014, that India has been trying to internationalize this issue, and which they will not perhaps take it easily. And I think these are the two reasons why they are becoming so aggressive, and we can see the border standoffs or face-off becoming frequent and also prolonged. I mean, prolonged ones, not the like in 2010, in 2012, 2013, we saw during both Li Keqiang's visit also, Xi Jinping's visit also, they were, but they didn't last for many days. Unlike those, these recent ones post Doklam, the duration of the standoff also is becoming long and long and long.
Mhm. You tell me, Hemant, Galwan and the clashes that happened there, it was a complete tearing up by the Chinese of all the agreements they've signed since the late 1990s with us. Peace and tranquility, confidence building measures on the border, and so on. This is blatant, isn't it?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That I mean, both sides are blaming each other. So Chinese go by, for example, they say that after Galwan, what happened in Galwan, their foreign minister openly demanded from the Indian government an investigation and action to be taken against those Indian border guards, according to them, who started this thing. And they're even now their commentators are asking this question, that why that demand by the Chinese foreign minister was not heeded to. I mean, why did India didn't say anything to that demand and didn't do anything to that demand?
Why should we?
Why would our foreign minister demand investigation and action to be taken by the Indian government against the Indian border guards? I mean, that's one of the questions which still is being discussed in the Chinese commentaries, for example.
We lost 20 men, Hemant, including a
I,
colonel.
yeah, no, I'm not. Please try to understand. I'm not. My what I see, what I'm doing is
Yeah.
that what
Mhm.
Chinese are debating or saying is not getting reflected in much of the media reports we have here.
Mhm.
So when I see the contradiction, what I read here and what I read, what is printed there, so I mean, I feel like sharing at least here what they are saying. I'm not saying they're right, but at least we should know what they're debating, right? And it's a very sorry state of affairs. I'm sorry to say that, because, for example, if you want, I can quote something from Ambassador Shiv Shankar Menon. Some time back, he had said this thing about Indian media in particular. He had said that how the media in India treated, for example, in 2012, the 50th anniversary of the 1962 India-China War, and I quote, that an outpouring which, far from providing any clarity of the issues involved, only blurred the boundaries between facts, history, and fiction. This is Ambassador Shiv Shankar Menon saying. And why I am quoting this? I'm quoting this because, for example, I mean, we only go by what appears in Global Times, right? We have 6 Indian correspondents based in Beijing, right? Some of them are there for more than a decade, right?
Yeah.
My problem is that none of them speak Chinese.
One of them
So,
does. At least I know one
so
of them does.
what are they reporting to us?
Mhm.
That's what I'm trying to say. That, for example, how do we, some experts we need who can tell us that why the Chinese on December 9 Tawang clash, why is their media and and they use a particular term in their foreign policy discourse, which has become very, very integral part of their foreign policy discourse now since the 20th Party Congress, and which I had mentioned also, which is in Chinese they say Hua Yu Chuan.
Yeah.
In English, it is translated as the right to speak or the discourse, right? So this is part of their now foreign policy behavior, posture, whatever you call it. That
Propaganda.
propaganda, not just propaganda, but propaganda effectively achieved to its logical
Achieved
end.
what? What have they achieved?
That what they are saying or what they are thinking, it has to be put across or reached across to the targeted audience, if you may, or to the general audience, if you may, both inside and outside China effectively. It's not just saying it, it has to be reached across,
So they
right?
want to get their message across, their propaganda across,
Yeah,
whereas we are not
because
able to do that because the system doesn't allow it, isn't it?
I don't know whether the system allows it or not. For example, I'm saying is that they are better organized. They're more organized.
Yeah,
I mean,
censorship is better.
and and the reason is that perhaps they look at these issues and they study these issues and then they write about these issues more effectively and in a more cohesive, coordinated manner. Whereas I see that thing perhaps not being carried out that effectively.
But isn't that the difference between a democracy and an authoritarian system like China's, you know?
I don't know why should democracy prevent us from doing our research better. Like I am saying,
Mhm.
that this information is all available in the Chinese media. I access them by sitting in JNU in my office on the internet. If I can do it, why others can't do it?
So tell me, let's move forward. What is your perception of how the Chinese view the border dispute with India?
As I said just now, that for them it's more like a local issue
Mhm.
rather than a zero-sum game, or whether they're trying to, some grand strategy or strategic, aims vis-a-vis India. That is the fundamental difference, which perhaps is not being debated much here.
So the
And
issues they have with
for example, if you permit me, I, I can use. In fact, I can be very frank. What I understand, I think in recent past, in particular, I think our China policy is more like falling into the China trap.
Mhm.
I see it that way, and perhaps, who knows? Maybe they want it that way. I don't know, but I see it as a China trap we are creating for ourselves.
And the trap basically will result in what?
The trap basically will result in, I don't know, its manifestations is anybody's guess, but as far as diplomacy goes, as far as our bilateral relationship goes, I think the Chinese see some kind of an advantage if that is happening, and especially the way they have carried out their propaganda effectively, according to them, uh, both during Galwan incidents and now in particular in Tawang. I think things are going according to what they had planned, perhaps.
But I just wonder who believes them, you know? Who believes anything that Xinhua or any of those Chinese media sources, official and otherwise, put out?
Surya, I don't know who believes them or not, but I can tell you one thing for sure, that all my Chinese scholar friends, especially of strategic affairs analysts or university professors, when I ask them, do they read or do they believe Global Times, they say they don't. Many of
They
them
don't
said
believe?
they don't even read Global Times
Uh-huh. Mhm.
because they say Global Times is a propaganda for people outside China.
So, what is your take on India-China relations going forward? You've already given us a hint as to the likely path. Spell it out for us.
Well, as I said, that if we continue to pursue falling into the China trap, then it's anybody's guess, or it's as good an imagination on your part as on my part, that where are we headed from here. But otherwise, I mean, if the Chinese have decided that they are not going to now withdraw from whatever they have occupied, whether in Galwan or now, even now in Tawang, they said that they have destroyed the Indian outpost. That
Mhm.
is why they are saying it is their victory. So if they are firm on their position, and if India is on the other hand firm, as our foreign minister has been repeatedly now reiterating, that unless the status quo is restored, there is no normalization with China, and China is becoming an intense challenge for us. So
Mhm.
that means basically it is something like the twains never meet.
But wouldn't you say this is the case with many other countries in the world, including Japan, for instance, US and China, for instance?
No, but they are, I mean, politically, if you look at, yes, but if you look at economy and trade, then things are different.
The same here, economy and trade. We've got a huge deficit, and we're still
Yeah,
buying
but
from them.
deficit is there, but I mean, we don't depend on Chinese economy and trade that much as Japan depends, or
Mhm.
South Korea depends, or for that matter, even the US depends. I mean, I was reading somewhere recently, for example, Apple, uh, the CEO of Apple said that if actually we decide to shift out of China, then it will take us 10 years to move out of China.
Mm.
So we are not in that kind of a precarious situation, right?
So, just to sum up, what you're telling me is that perhaps our reading of China is not as adequate as it should be, that the Chinese have held out certain warnings, and they seem to be intent on pressing forward and realizing from those warnings, they may be, whether on the ground or otherwise. So, in that sense, it's important to closely follow what their top level leadership says and what their actions are on the ground. Does
It's
that roughly sum
absolutely.
up?
I mean, you have summed it up better than me, our discussion. But I will, if you permit me, I will have one more thing to add,
Yeah.
which is that I've read it very frequently in various Chinese commentaries, and some Chinese scholars have even mentioned this in my conversation with them, and which is very interesting because they say that other than their some strategic or tactical motives, they are not actually very seriously interested in what happens to Arunachal Pradesh.
I see.
In the same manner as they say that India is also least interested in what happens to Aksai Chin.
Mhm.
So it's a game being played from both sides. And that game is actually become very interesting and intense in the last 5 6 years from the Indian side in particular, they say.
So we'll have to wait and see what happens next.
Saying
The new year may be interesting in that sense.
yeah, yeah, because they say that since India is becoming the apple of the Western eyes, so
Hmm.
India is very much keen to either internationalize issues with China or keep paging off.
Well, okay, on that note, Hemant Adlakha, pleasure talking to you. It's an interesting discussion. I would have loved it to continue, but all these programs have a time limit. So I think we can explore this later, perhaps when more news of this kind occasions itself. Hemant Adlakha, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And for those of you who followed us on this conversation, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media and Instagram and Twitter. Thank you and good night.